based
Wait,
off
now when you say stand up, do you mean you're going to start telling jokes? Is there a monologue? Is there going to be some political humor?
stand up is TV talk for doing an intro.
Ah,
Yes. So I'm not
I
even going to
like that.
stand up for my stand up. Jeez.
I just learned something new today. You're sitting down for your stand up. That's okay. I'm standing up for your stand up. Is this live?
This is going in the video. Yes. Congratulations. You just made the blooper reel.
Woo!
And are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Are you ready? All right. Hi there, I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the professional Hobo. And welcome to my series where I interview ordinary people who have extraordinary travel lifestyles, remote careers, and adventures to share with you today. Now, before I introduce my guest today, I have 3 requests of you. First of all, if you are enjoying this video and this series, I always appreciate a thumbs up. Second of all, if you already have a location-independent career and the ability to work remotely, leave a comment with an emoticon of your choice. I suggest the strong arm, but I'll leave it up to you. If you don't have a location-independent career or work remotely, but you wish to, please leave a comment with the biggest obstacle that remains between you where you are now and where you want to be. Lastly, if you are interested in long-term travel, be it for a month or a year, please check the description for a link to download your free checklist of 10 things to do before you travel long-term. Now, I am excited to have a chat today with Jason Moore. After college, Jason had a dream to travel the world, but he also had $20,000 in debt and not a lot of money to his name. Not a very good recipe for travel. But he chose the travel lifestyle anyway, and it led to many different iterations of travel. For example, he drove across the USA in a giant orange tabby cat-shaped van. He worked as a tour manager for a famous indie rock band, and he spent a decade traveling and working on the road as a digital nomad before being a digital nomad was cool. Eventually, after all those travel experiences, it had such an impact on him that he decided to dedicate his entrepreneurial life to helping others achieve their travel dreams. And he does it in a few different ways. First of all, he is the host and creator of the very popular Zero to Travel podcast, has over 7 million downloads, over 500 5-star ratings, and Jason shares thoughtful interviews, unconventional perspectives, and actionable advice to help you travel the world on your terms. Jason is also the co-founder of the Location Indie community and the Lifestyle Launch Academy, where he mentors hundreds of entrepreneurs, helping them build side hustles that will help them break free of the 9-to-5 so they can do more of what they love in life. Now, Jason isn't traveling much these days because he's living in Norway with his wife and few kids. I think your few kids actually total 2 kids. Thank you for joining me today, Jason. It is a pleasure to chat with you.
Thanks for having me. But do you know something that I don't know, Nora? I gotta go talk to my wife for a second. Hold on. Is there another one? No, I'm kidding.
Who knows? Anything's possible.
That's great. Thanks for the kind introduction. And yeah, when you were reading that, I was thinking, wow, I have a pretty cool job.
Yes, you definitely do. And you've had a bunch of pretty cool jobs. Now, you and I met in 2014, I think, in Colorado, where I was a guest on your podcast. And we had lots of amazing chats, but we've known each other online even longer than that. And I've watched your life and lifestyle take many different forms. So I gave everybody the Cliff Notes version in the introduction, but I would love it if you would get a little bit more into what your travel lifestyle has been like over all these years.
Well, sure, in a second, but I was just thinking about when we were meeting up in Boulder. I thought we went out to Thai food, one of my favorite Thai places. They had delicious curry. We were at my favorite brew pub, the Mountain Sun, hanging out, having a beer, having some good food. And doesn't that sound good right now?
Oh, just don't even get me started. Oh, gosh. I pine for these times. That's probably the thing that I have missed the most throughout the pandemic is being able to go out to a restaurant and to spend time with friends.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also so cool to work in a space like this where you're really passionate about, like you and I are both passionate about travel, helping people do it. And then you get to meet other people like yourself, and then you cross paths and you get to hang out and just have cool conversations, and you end up on really cool things like this. So thanks for having me here. Yeah. Going back to your question, I think, I think that's kind of the beauty of the travel lifestyle, right? If your priority is to travel, then you almost at some you have to have different iterations of that, right? Because the more flexible and open you are, the more opportunities you're going to get to travel in different ways. And if travel is your number one thing, where you're going to be like, I mean, at least in my case, it was like, well, I don't really care in the beginning, at least, how I do it, as long as it's something, there's something that gets me out on the road. Right. So you mentioned the student debt, and that was a huge obstacle. And I just thought, I don't know, maybe it's a Gen X thing. I don't really know anymore. But when I was coming out of school, it felt like, okay, well, I have this debt. And now, of course, I just have to get like a regular job. I'm using air quotes. And, then I probably have to get a place to live. And of course, I have to pay my bills. And this is just kind of what you do, right? This is what you do, right? And I was like, but no, I want to do this travel thing. And I really, after hearing some stories from friends of mine who had been studying abroad, and I heard about this whole like, hey, you can go backpacking through Europe thing. This was kind of like a thing people were doing. Again, this is before sort of travel blogs and all of this stuff that is available to us now. This is in the late 90s, Nora. Okay. This was 1998, I guess. So yeah, there was no model for just going off and traveling. And the culture in the US wasn't like, take a gap year, in Australia or England. I think people kind of ran into other people who took a year off to travel, and that was maybe more normal, maybe more in the culture. We didn't have social media or anything like that. So I just didn't know anybody who had done anything like that, and didn't really think that it was within my capability to do. So I don't know if I consciously did this, but I guess I kind of reversed engineered it in a way. And I did it by just choosing travel. I was like, I actually had a job offer at a certain point, like for sort of a regular, responsible grown-up job. And I said, no, you know what? I'd rather just spend this 6 months and save some money and do this backpacking trip I really want to do. So I'll just be a waiter or I'll do something. What ended up happening was I just started, it just changed my frame of reference, right? It gave me a different lens through which to see things. So I started looking for jobs that would require me to travel. I'm like, well, yeah, I could work at a restaurant and I'll go get a job like that to save money, but maybe I can find something else. I don't know. I could be a flight attendant or whatever. I don't know, something. And I came across this crazy thing. It was a charity event that was traveling to different Kmarts, and kids were going to be racing modified lawn tractors around a Kmart parking lot through this obstacle course. And it was a charity event, and kids, they were going to donate $5 for every kid that raced to like a drug prevention charity, a local one. And it went to a different city every week. And I said, what is this? They faxed me the information. This is old school. I didn't know. And I was like, well, I don't know. I got an interview. I ended up getting the job. That's another story. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to do this. Look, I get to travel all over. I'm going to make $500 a week. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be rolling in the dough. I get to go to a different city every week. This is awesome. And lo and behold, there's this whole industry called experiential marketing or event marketing where, most people know the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Have you ever seen the giant hot dog that drives around? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sort of part of this industry, right? It's these touring events that promote different products. And it's this whole thing I didn't know about. So I ended up working in this industry for 10 years because I was able to work as a tour manager. I was able to manage these events and travel around. And then in between contracts, I would travel overseas, and I just got to travel, which is all I wanted to do. So that was sort of like version one. Then I got a regular job, and then I realized I wanted to have more control of my time. Then I got into entrepreneurship because I heard the term location independent. So that was another way to travel. That was where things were more in my control. So that became sort of the next goal. And these were the different versions, I guess, of me traveling, right? It was the touring events, the music events and things like that at the end, at the tail end. Then it was kind of being in one place for a little while. And then it was kind of going to the next version, which was having the location independence and working for yourself. So I do think it's important for anybody watching, and maybe some of you already know this, for some of you that are thinking about trying to set yourself up for sort of a life of travel or long-term travel, is just choosing travel in the first place is the top priority. And then let that inform the rest of your decisions, right? It's like you start looking at things different. Like, do I really need that flat screen TV I'm going to buy? Is that going to help me travel? No. Okay. Is this job going to help me travel? Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to switch careers. It just starts, you start answering questions differently. So
You bring up so many questions that I want to ask, but there's something. So I'll start with I heard you on your podcast fairly recently. You were answering reader questions, and you got into the fact that you had this student debt, and that you decided to travel anyway with it. And
yeah.
I, as a formal financial planner, cringed at the idea because, of course, I always tell people to get their financial house in order before they travel long term. But I now realize that you made certain choices. So your form of travel was not immediately starting a location independent business and strapping on your backpack and going. Instead, you got what could be equated to a steady job, but
Yeah.
one that had you traveling. And that would have allowed you to pay down significantly, if not entirely, your student debt in those initial years. And then you decided to go location independent. Now, when was that?
I think I first heard the term at the first World Domination Summit, which is an event, a big conference. And I guess now that was, the first one was 2011 or 2010, maybe? Does that sound right? I
Sounds
think
about right.
so.
And that was when the term location independent really was just getting its legs. And certainly in my research of this interview, you had a defining moment at World Domination Summit. So what happened?
Well, I don't, I guess I had a few. Thinking back, there were a lot of connections that were made at that particular event. So I always encourage people to go to events, right? And I mean, when we can, meet people in person and all that, such a wonderful thing. I mean, one of the big reasons we're probably having this conversation now. We've gotten to meet in person and hang out, and it's one thing to be friends online, but then you take it to a whole other level when you meet in person. But I think it was the second or the third WDS, because I skipped one somewhere. The timelines are a little fuzzy, but I met my business partner, Travis. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but that was obviously a game changer because we ended up doing a project together, and now we're still working together. We're co-founders of this community, Location Indie, which is digital nomads and location independent entrepreneurs. It's a whole community for all of those folks, and yeah, we've just been working together now for, I think it's about 7 years. So at the time, I didn't know that was such a big thing, but we were both from Philly. We were both travel podcasters, but yet we met at this conference in Portland, Oregon, and ended up having this working relationship, and it's still going. So pretty cool. I will tell the story of the origin story of the community is pretty cool. So
Cool, please.
because we were traveling around a lot, we weren't always together in one place. So this is before remote work was more mainstream, I suppose. But yeah, when we started the community, we were actually both in the Philadelphia area at that time. I think I was visiting family, and he was living there, basing there. And he was traveling around a lot too. But we decided to take a handful of days and go to Ocean City, New Jersey, in the dead of winter, which is a dry town, mind you. There are no open bars, nowhere to go get a beer. There was literally nothing open. There was a skee ball place, the arcade was open a little bit, and then there was a pizza place and I think a 7-Eleven around the corner. And we didn't even have a car there because we got dropped off, I think, by Travis's wife. And our only mission was to create this community and to figure it all out. And we did it in 3 days, and it was the wackiest sort of best 3 days, right? Because it was like being in I'm trying to think of, there are some movie analogies, I'm sure, where you just like, it's like time didn't exist, right? We were just like shooting videos, writing copy, walking to the pizza place, maybe playing a little skee ball. It was just all a blur, but we got to do it together. And that was, I guess, the point I wanted to make, because even though we're working remotely, it's interesting that that big project, the genesis of that, did take place in person, and that was super exciting and feel like a special time in our lives where we had this blank slate and we're like, hey, let's make a community. And we got to make something that was really, the intention was because we wanted to be around people like this that were doing the same thing that we were doing. We just didn't know where to find them, so we're just like, well, we have to make this so we can find our people and they can find each other and we can all be one big happy family.
There's so much poetry to this because, of course, the location independent location indie community, which I've been a part of for many years, and really appreciate it's a very nurturing community, and there's a lot to learn, and there's lots of networking and mastermind opportunities, and it's really a very diverse community. But of course, part of one of your big MOs is to nurture and help people become entrepreneurs, so usually starting with a side hustle. And the poetry in this is that's kind of what you and Trav initially did with this community, because that was for you, I feel like that was probably your first really serious entrepreneurial venture. Was there a learning curve involved in becoming an entrepreneur? Do you have any tips for someone who might wish to?
Yeah. Well, actually, so I first went location independent by leveraging my contacts in the event industry, the industry I worked in for 10 plus years. I had developed a relationship with a guy who's a friend of mine. He ended up being the best man in my wedding later, but he owned an event staffing company, and we were always talking, and I was trying to get him some business, doing a bit of a side hustle there, even while I was doing the event stuff, and basically offered me a full-time role as a freelance business development consultant. So I was doing business development for him. So I had my own company, but it was essentially working full-time for him. But there was still risk. I had 3 months where I was locked in. He's like, we're going to try this for 3 months. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just part ways, no hard feelings. And, I ended up working with him for a couple years. But that was the thing that got me location independent. So one of the things that Travis and I teach is the triangle of freedom. So you got a triangle, right? And you got the time freedom, the location freedom, and the financial freedom. And that's what we help people work around when it comes to their side hustle. And we feel that everybody prioritizes, maybe more so than others, one of those different points in the triangle in different stages in their life, right? And early on for us, for both of us, just because we love to travel, it was really about the location freedom, the location independence. It wasn't about making millions of dollars. It wasn't even about owning all of my time, believe it or not. It was just, hey, I just want to be able to do this from anywhere. That was the number one driving force. So once I got the business development gig, I was location independent. And then I got that. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's start working on the next thing. Let me figure out how I can free up my time. So I started a side hustle, which was a website that serviced the event industry. Actually, it was a B2B website. It was like an eBay for wacky promotional vehicles. If you think about the hot dog and all the stuff we talked about, the tabby cat and everything. So I was trying to grow that because that went hand in hand with what I was doing. And then after that, Travis and I started the Paradise Pack, which was another sort of like a bundle sale thing. And we don't have to get into that, but we did this project and it worked well. And the event thing started working. And then I just said, well, I think I can just leave this freelance thing because, I saw I was able to make X amount of dollars in 1 month. And if I can do that once, even if I'm not doing that next month, I know I can do it again. So you have to have really a lot of sort of faith along the way that things are going to work out to an extent, but it's also nice when you see something work first, So I think the biggest piece of advice, and it's what we've really pivoted to now, is just, we don't tell anybody go quit your job right away. If you want to be location dependent, you want to start your own gig, the best time to do it is when you're working full time and you actually have an income. Then you can start it as a side business. You're going to make some mistakes. We all make mistakes every day, no matter how long we've been doing this. So, you can make some mistakes. You can kind of figure things out on the business side without having the pressure of having to generate X amount of dollars to pay your bills and all that kind of stuff. Everybody's financial situation is different, of course, but just general blanket advice, I feel like a side hustle is a great way to do that. Now we flip it a little bit, Nora, because we're all about the lifestyle, man. You know that, like, you want to travel, you want to live the life you want. So what we'd like to do is help people figure out what their ideal lifestyle is first, and then build a business that's going to fit into that. And that again kind of flips things around, because not everybody, I think sometimes it's easy to get the idea, if you're not experienced in entrepreneurship, that you just have to be intentional with what you want, right? So it's just, do you want to really have like a startup with hundreds of employees? Is that what you want? And that's cool if you want that. And then you have to like kind of get into that world, but that might mean, it's a different type of culture, a different type of way to grow a company. we're maybe more about probably the solopreneur, maybe works with a small team, and you're building these, one person or few people helping type of businesses. You can replace your income, maybe make a decent 6-figure living, and kind of, have your time and have a good lifestyle, and do something you enjoy. It doesn't mean we don't want to like grow our businesses more, things like that, but we're really about prioritizing the lifestyle first, and letting that inform your business choices.
And that's excellent. And that really plays into how I often recommend that other people do it as well. So when I sold everything to travel, I didn't have any idea what I would do in order to make money or sustain
Right.
this lifestyle, right? So I had to figure it out on the way while figuring out how to travel full time and figuring out everything. And
That's a lot.
it is a lot. And, if I think about your triangle, I feel like you can't prioritize everything in the triangle and do everything properly. You have to systematically choose which point of the triangle you want to work on, and then find a way to marry all three. So your first point is to focus on the lifestyle, design the lifestyle, identify the lifestyle that you want, and then find a way to make that happen. And I appreciate that your approach is much more around the side hustle. Develop that location independent career first, and then allow that to make your lifestyle dreams happen, instead of jumping both feet into a lifestyle without any kind of safety net. So one of my pieces of advice for people is, don't quit your day job until you have the foundations of your business or remote career at least somewhat established. So then that way you've got a certain financial security to help you on the road, but also to that time element, because work-life productivity plus travel is paradoxical, right? I've already addressed this in many interviews, right? You can't have a full-time travel lifestyle plus a full-time work lifestyle. One is always going to maybe not come at the expense of the other, but there is a very different balance to having that travel lifestyle plus the work.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, of course, it depends on, I guess, how you're traveling and how you define it, right? Like I just interviewed a couple, and they have regular work weeks. They're just living their lives. They just happen to be living them in different countries. They're not traveling around all the time. They're renting a place for a month or two, and then they go to the next one. And it's really about just slow travel, setting up for a little while, and just living their lives. They just don't have a home that they go to. But I agree with you. I think, what you're talking about is like the person that's kind of, hey, I'm just going to go see the world and go do all these things and see all these things. But I'm also going to build a business at the same. It's like, well, yeah, something's got to give. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that I agree with you. The balance is difficult to find. And, I mean, you have a ton of experience trying to find that, so you know this, but it worked out for you, right? Like I agree. I don't think it's the best move to quit your job when you can grow something on the side, but it's also at some point people have to make the leap. And I don't think that's ever comfortable. Even if you're established, what does that mean to you? Defining maybe what that means, understanding what that means financially, all that's super important. But then even when you get to that point, you still have to cut the cord, and that's scary.
And this also goes back to what you said at the very beginning, which is about consciously, you were talking about consciously spending, right? So, is the big screen TV going to get me to where I want to go in life? Or, is the plane ticket going to be more instrumental? So, and there's a lot of conscious approach and many conscious decisions. Like every decision we make is either going to help us move towards our goal or further away from it. And I think if you can focus on that lifestyle, that gives you really something to aspire towards. And I think when you have that really clearly in mind, that can really help inform every decision you make in a way that can help you get there much more quickly than if you were just maybe trying to start a business for the sake of trying to start a business and didn't really have a why.
I always tell people, if it's also, you have to factor in the speed at which you want to be location independent or work for yourself or have these freedoms, right? Because if you're like, I hate my job, I want this like yesterday, dude, then you might want to think about just taking some of the skills that you have and don't, even though you want to have passive income and all this stuff, it's like, well, no, accept that you might want to trade time for money for a little while and that you're going to be okay with that. you could launch a service business literally in a day, right? You can just say, all right, here's the things that I do. Here are the skills that I have. Okay, I'm a graphic designer, so I make high-end logos for companies or whatever you're going to offer. And then you just start reaching out to people and trying to get business. I mean, it's that simple. I'm not saying it's easy to do. It's easy to do. It's not simple. Or is it simple, not easy to do? I don't know. One or the other. But you can have a business if it's just you and your skills, and you want to just bring people in and charge them per hour for something that you do for them, right? That's a kind of business that you can literally probably launch in a day or two. It doesn't mean you're going to have clients, but it's not like you're saying, okay, I'm going to create this course and I'm going to sell it and I'm going to be, it's not all that. So you can do that much more quickly than maybe figuring out how to run an e-commerce store, let's say, and you have to create a physical product, or, figure out how to ship, all this stuff. I mean, those things are great, but you're not going to figure those out you can't start a business like that you can start it in a day, but you can't really get traction in a day. Whereas you could start something with your skills, reach out to your initial network, and maybe have a client in a day or two. It's totally possible. So, the first business I did, the first event website thing, not the consulting. The consulting thing was a perfect example. That was a service. I didn't have a website or anything. I just had a relationship and some contacts and something to offer because I could connect these two parties, right? Even the first website thing I started didn't start as a website, the eBay event thing. It started off as an email thing where I would post listings through email. So there are a lot of creative ways to start businesses, and you have to think about and just be honest with yourself. Hey, how quickly do I want this? And then also back to the travel thing, think about where you want to take your show. If you want to take it on the road, right? If you're going to be living in Mexico, you don't need as much money to live. So maybe your business only needs to make a lot less than you think it does for you to have a comfortable life and really the same lifestyle if you're just moving your physical body to a different place. And there's some cool websites that can help you out. Like I'm sure you've been on like expatistan or .com or Numbeo. These are cost of living websites that are crowdsourced, and they give you a pretty good idea of what the cost of living is in different places. And it's good to kind of know where you might want to go. And this, again, goes back to the lifestyle first. Figure out what you want to do. If you want to go live in Mexico for 6 months, you shouldn't look at your bills in the USA or Canada. You should look at what your bills are going to be in Mexico, and then what would your business need to do to cover? What level would your business need to be at for you to take care of everything you need to? So, just different ways of looking at it.
So you've talked about a couple of different kinds of businesses that people can have, and I think this is really important to address because you talked about the fact that you could, in a day you could, hang up a shingle and offer services that employ skills that you already have and work, and that really boils down to being a freelancer. So that is where you take your skills and you're still working for yourself, but ultimately you have clients and you're working for a selection of clients. Then the other one is, you were talking about starting an e-commerce store, which is a full business unto itself. And I like to say, all freelancers are entrepreneurs, but not all entrepreneurs are freelancers. Mm-hmm. So they really are two different kinds of businesses. And if you are freelancing, essentially you are trading time for money. Now, you can outsource many of the jobs that are involved in freelancing. So as a personal example, when I hit the road and then, made the mental connection that I could make a living with a laptop and an internet connection, my living of choice was being a freelance writer. Because I realized, hey, wait a minute, I can type articles into my computer and I can send them off via email and numbers will show up in my bank account. It's so cool.
Boom.
Exactly. So that was an entrepreneurial venture. However, I was a freelancer and I was working for other people and I was trading my time for money in the form of writing articles. When I then started running a website, that moved more into an entrepreneurial venture because then I was creating systems and forms that would generate more passive income with very large quotations around the passive part. But yeah, it was much more of a business and an entrepreneurial venture. And I also did both. And that was great for quite a long time, because the freelance writing gigs that I had provided an element of stability while I built the business on the other side. There's also a third form of being location independent that we haven't talked about, because it's not really something that you particularly address in your businesses, but it is telecommuting. So you can have a job for an employer, as many people had pre-pandemic, that has now become remote, and you have the ability to work from anywhere around the world, but it's a steady job for an employer that often requires clocking in, and often at even certain specific hours of the day. So there are definitely three different ways that you can financially create a location independent lifestyle.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know, the third way you mentioned, I mean, this again, not to harp on the lifestyle thing, but this goes back to that, right? If you're somebody that you're like, all right, well, I could just work for somebody else, learn on somebody else's dime, and have that location independence, that's great. Because I want to go live in Argentina because they just came out with a digital nomad visa. They did. And all these countries are trying to get people in, and this is an awesome thing. But you better make sure that your employer's okay with that, right? You know, if they're the type of employer that's like, yeah, you can work from home, but other country, not so much. We're not that casual about it for whatever reason. You still need to kind of know what it is that you want so you can filter things through that. And but those are, yeah, I mean, you just broke it down in those three ways. And I think I never want people to get discouraged with freelancing either. I mean, I did it for a while, you did it, and it's, you know, it got me out on the road in the way that I wanted to be. I was trading time for money, but I didn't care because I got to do it where I wanted. That was my number one thing. And you know, even freelancer businesses, you alluded to it with the outsourcing and things. You can scale those to a point where you're not actually doing the work, and then it transitions to a entrepreneur, more of an entrepreneurial model, I guess. You know, doing like a productized service or something like that. So there are many ways to do it now. We're pretty lucky. The times we live in, huh? I mean, it couldn't be well, you could literally say almost every day, because new technology comes out all the time. It's literally never been easier.
With communities like yours, the location indie community, people can reduce that learning curve and have that sense of community that is sorely lacking when you get started in a lifestyle like this. Now, talk a little bit about your Lifestyle Launch Academy.
Yeah, it's our flagship program where we help people start a side hustle so they can eventually quit their 9 to 5 jobs and have more freedom, in a nutshell. And you know, it's again using that methodology of going through the lifestyle portion first. So everything's broken up into 3 sections. We have and these are, it's funny because these are the ones that are most overlooked. When you want to start a business, a lot of times you're reading a lot of business articles and business books and things like that. But there's the lifestyle piece, which people just seem to skip over, right? And then there's the mindset. And you know, how important is the mindset of an entrepreneur, and trying to get your head around what this all means and how to overcome the mental obstacles when they pop up. It's hugely important, because I think it's one of the most underrated, not talked about enough things in entrepreneurship. Because a lot of times, if you're somebody who's like never taken action, but you have all the ideas or something, that's a mental barrier, right? I had that barrier myself. And if you can't conquer that, and you can't learn how to conquer that on an ongoing basis, then it's not going to work, right? And you like, you never get past that. You know this, right? It's just a constant struggle, right? I mean, there's just like, not all the time, maybe, you know, you get some experience, and of course you get better at things, but then, you know, you reach another thing that you've never encountered, and then the doubts and the fears pop up again. Or you go into a big event. Maybe you're a speaker, and you've spoken in front of 10 people, and now you're confident, and now you're invited to speak in front of 250, and you're like, oh crap, you know? So as things go along, there's just always stuff to battle. So you got to get your head around the mindset stuff. And, you know, the thing that makes the Lifestyle Launch Academy special is it's again, there's the community component, right? So you have the course, you have the coaching, which is one-on-one coaching now with somebody from our team who are like qualified business coaches, and the community aspect for the accountability and the ongoing, because it's a long game, right? You don't just come in and, spend a couple months doing this and then you're just kind of off and running. It's just an ongoing thing, right? So that's how we structured it. So you're getting all of the community support, and then you're also getting the one-on-one support, and you're getting the course materials you need to work through things and start building and growing in side hustle. So that's what we do.
So please tell us where we can find you. You have many homes online. You've got Location Indie, you've got the Lifestyle Launch Academy, you've got Zero to Travel podcast, you've got your website. So is there one place or many places that you would direct people to today?
Zero to Travel is the podcast. So if you get on there, you can find a whole bunch of awesome content. I think it's great. I mean, that's some credible guests, and I mean, Nora's been on the show, so it's a lot of great stuff in there. And then for the business type of stuff, if you go to Location Indie, INDIE, locationindie.com, you can just sign up, and then you can get on our free newsletter and hear about all the goodies over there. So yeah, pretty easy.
Do you have any parting words of advice for our guests today?
Oh, in what respect? Travel, life, anything?
You are the Location Indie guru. I will say, certainly you have spoken at length today about lifestyle. So for certainly the focus of your businesses have been on lifestyle and mindset. And that is something that we've identified is often lacking. People try to put the cart in front of the horse with regards to, developing a business or getting the money without really understanding their why and what that's for. So yeah. I really appreciate that approach. But I also think that there's probably things to bear in mind when developing that mindset. And perhaps you can just leave us with a tidbit that will guide people through the possible pitfalls.
You think about being able to work from anywhere, and then you start imagining maybe, hiking Machu Picchu or all these really big dramatic things, right? But really it's the day-to-day thing, right? Like for me, right, and that changes. That's what we loved about location independence all the time as a term, and having that freedom is, for a while it meant travel. Now it means, okay, I don't have to rush out my kids out the door because I get to spend time with them. And even if I don't want to take them to daycare on a particular day, like we did this last week, I'm just like, oh, let's just all stay home and hang out. And I'm just going to take this day off because I can do that because I work for myself. And it's about controlling your destiny, maybe having more control, taking back control of your life in some regard. And but in order to do all that, it's really helpful to understand what it is you want, and just breaking it down. Like, what does your daily life look like? Like, what might you want to change about your daily life? Maybe it's nothing, and that's great. Or maybe you see something on the horizon and you're thinking, okay, I might want to change, X, Y, or Z. So how would I start kind of working towards that now? And then it's just taking those small action steps every day and just being super persistent and consistent. That's really what it is.
Well, this has been amazing, Jason. Now, I look forward to seeing you again, and I'm hoping that I'm going to see you at Camp Indie. We haven't talked about this, but this is a new event that you are spearheading. It's summer camp for location independent and aspiring location independent people. And you have so kindly asked me to come and impart some financial words of wisdom to the group whilst doing all kinds of fun camp activities. So hopefully that's going to happen later this year, but if not, it's going to happen next year. And I think that's such a great way to combine business with pleasure. And again, focus on that lifestyle and fun that hopefully we'll have in person.
I mean, that is happening September 17th to the 19th, 2021. So I look forward to seeing you there. And absolutely. That's another, we don't need to confuse people with too many URLs, but get on the Location Indie list and you'll hear about it. So
if you want to see both Jason and I in a camp setting, then yes, definitely check out Camp Indie. It'll be fun. Thank you, Jason, so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure. And I'm Nora Dunn, otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and I'll catch you next time.